Hey everyone, today we're going to do a quick update on the format for Streets of New Capenna, looking at some of the key commons and then some of the uh, draft templated deck shells that were built just to see where we went right and maybe where we went wrong a little bit. So for those who've been playing the format, it's probably seemed more like a Bant cube or a Broker's cube than a true 5-color format at this time. Though I do think that will correct some as blue white and green white get drafted to the point where the decks aren't as good because too many people are in them, and the red blacks may become a little more open. I don't know if there's going to be a red green deck that looks really good or a Cabaretti necessarily, but I think when we look at all these white, green, and blue commons that are going to get drafted higher, we're going to see those decks not perform quite as well, and it'll give like the black red a chance to have a little more balance in the metagame. So that might be putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but if we are looking at top commons, it's pretty easy to see that the value creatures in white are doing very well. So, Inspiring Overseer, Rafine's Informant, Gathering Throng, and even to a lesser extent, Backup Agent are all performing exceptionally well. It makes sense with Inspiring Overseer. I think many of us peg this as the best common in the set before the games were really even played, but it's just performing exceptionally well because the blue white and green white decks have other good supporting pieces around this, and it's just a flyer in a format with 2 common reach creatures and 1 mythic reach creature. And then other colors other than blue and white aren't really getting too many flyers. So it can get you the value right on entering the battlefield and then just either trade to get you a 2-for-1 or just attack him for some damage. It's a card that's definitely worth first picking in most packs. Rafine's Informant is probably pointing to the fact that this format is seeming to be very tempo driven with some value as kind of like a 1B plan. It gets on the board turn 2 and might even be a 3-2 on turn 2. And then at that point, you can, swing in, either like force a trade or get in some damage. You can remove some blockers either by like bouncing them or tapping them. And then it really sets the tone as early as turn 2. And it's still useful later in the game for its connive to just, cycle for all effects and still leave a body. And then Gathering Throng, Throng strung together, right? So if you've got even 2 of these, it's worth playing, but I imagine Circovitz and others will look into the right number, and it's probably around 3 to 4, because you really don't want to have 2 in your opening hand, or 2 by turn 3 when you potentially cast this. So it may be 3 or 4. These are still being picked kind of late, around pick 5 or 6, and I know oftentimes I'm still seeing these wheel, so it's something that you may potentially be able to get later in pack 1 or pack 2 or pack 3. And the last white card to really focus on that talks about the deck is Backup Agent. Generally these cards have not played well. These Iron Shell Beetles that are 1/1 and give a plus almost on counter. But counters matter a lot with blue-white and with white-green. And then it's a citizen, so you get those types of matter strategies and synergies. But also we have, flyers that can put the counter on, double strikers, even fish that are unblockable. So it's doing a lot for 2 mana. And even if you just drop it on turn 2 as a 2/2 with a counter, there are cards like Celestial Regulator that'll tap whatever your opponent played on turn 2 or 3 and keep a tap for an extra turn. So there's just so many synergies that are really helping Backup Agent just overperform. In terms of blue, I think many were pegging blue is not going to be quite as strong, but I know I personally, and we'll look at the deck shells, thought the flyers and the ability to play a tempo game would help blue play really well. So that is kind of seen by Make Disappear, which is a quench or mana leak variant, but it has this casualty 1, so it can still be useful later in the game to maybe make opponent pay 4, which is oftentimes a hard counter, especially if they're trying to double spell. But even leaving this up on turn 2, if you don't have another play or you're thinking about cycling a Family Fixer or playing a Make Disappear, can be really useful, especially if you're going second to nab your opponent's 3-drop. Yeah, you'll see tons of these cards or 3-drops that are performing exceptionally well in the format. So it's definitely a card that's overperforming. I don't know if you need to pick it super early. You're seeing, the average I've seen that at around pick 7 to 8. So I am still seeing these wheel. It's one of the bigger reasons that blue is performing well is you can get these cards that are performing exceptionally well, in picks, 7 to 14, which is just amazing. Similarly, Echo Inspector didn't look like it would be exceptional, but figured it'd probably be pretty good. But if you can get this to be a 3/4 body, that's going to block pretty much any flyer other than the family fixer for Obscura or Esper, and that doesn't come out until turn 7 at the earliest. And that's already a somewhat questionable card to put in a deck. So this can oftentimes be the biggest thing in the air. And then you add in ways to like tap creatures or bounce creatures during combat, or put a shield counter on this, or pump it potentially with a Majestic Metamorphosis if it already has a counter. Can make Echo Inspector oftentimes be more than a 2-for-1, but even maybe like a 3-for-1 in some instances. And then Run Out of Town is this set's variant of Revenge of the Drowned, if you remember that from Midnight Hunt. Yeah, we don't get the Decayed Zombie, but that's still fine. This is playing exceptionally well. It's a great thing to do because there are many other instant speed actions you can take, even if it's just one of your lands that you can sack and pay 4 mana to draw a card. So you can leave the mana open, and then you can run out of town your opponent's end step and maybe set up a favorable attack on the next turn. And then probably our last blue one that is performing better than many people expected is the suit up variant for this set, Majestic Metamorphosis. If you put draw a card on a card, oftentimes it's going to play up, but especially when many of the creatures are smaller in this format, this gives you a chance to win a combat or just give something flying and swing it maybe for lethal. It is good to note this can be any artifact. It doesn't have to be an artifact that's like a vehicle or anything. So it could be a treasure token, could be a Assassin's Crowbar, could be, oh gosh, what's the artifact that people are calling the new Ember Cleave, if I can find it. Yeah, Quick Draw Dagger. So there's lots of things that you can do that's really cute with Majestic Metamorphosis. And then we'll look at green because that's the last part of our Bant, our Broker's color pair that's performing very well. And Jewel Thief, I think many of us thought this would be a top 5 common in the set, and it is proving to be the case. Having all the keywords Vigilance and Trample and giving a treasure is just exceptional for 30. It's oftentimes worth splashing is one of the few green cards if it really comes down to it. And then owing to the tempo-oriented nature of the format, it's not surprising that For the Family is playing exceptionally well. Getting +2/+2, or maybe +4/+4 for just 1 green mana is really strong. So there are also lands that are worth picking up. So there's Family Evolving Wilds, and probably the only one worth picking really early is Broker's Hideout, because you, at this point in the format, are really happy if you're in some combination of blue, white, and green. So it's going to get you at least 2 or maybe all 3 of those. And it can thin your deck, which can be nice as long as you have adequate mana already in your hand or on the battlefield. And then from there, you're seeing our other lands. Let me locate those. It's like the Skybridge Tower, for example. You're still getting, pick 4 or 5. That's all right. Botanical Plaza, kind of the same. Pick 4 to 5. And the potentially obscure storefront, pointing to Azorius or blue-white maybe being a little stronger than white-green, all things being held equal. And then maybe opening up to black splash, with black probably being easier and better to splash than like red, for example. That can be really helpful. Beyond that, for our other colors, if you are looking at black, and this is even more splashing, is Girder Goons. It's probably our top black common, and that's probably going to stay that way throughout the format. It oftentimes reads 4 mana, deal 4 damage to an opponent, draw a card, and put a tap 2/2 into play. So that's pretty playable. We've played 2/2 draw a card for 3 mana and been happy about it. So adding 1 extra mana to deal 4 damage to opponents probably going to be pretty good. And then from there, we are seeing some fake your own death and murder. Murder's kind of tough because a lot of these creatures have entered the battlefield effects. You're looking at maybe getting 2 for 1. So it's just not playing as well as maybe some people thought. And there are some bombs, but oftentimes you can play like a run out of town or just tempo the opponent out and beat them before their bomb really takes over. So murder's probably not going to bump into the top performing common. And then fake your own death is kind of cute because of all those enter the battlefield effects. And the fact that it'll also produce a treasure for you, which you can probably use in some other way. I've got a recent deck that I played, and it was blue-white, splashing black, and it trophied for Nightclubber and Fake Your Own Death. And both just played exceptionally well in the deck. And we had adequate fixing, so it wasn't like a big stretch to splash them or anything. And then you really have to search before you find some red commons that are performing well. And Strangle's probably overall better than Murder in the decks that would be in, because it's just a single mana and will kill a lot of creatures in the format. And then your first red creature should be Mayhem Patrol. But it's a ways down here. So all that to say, if you can be in the brokers or Bant colors, at this point it's a good place to be. And if you can find the fixing so you can comfortably play your two colors well or your splash third color, that's a great place to be. There also are strong 2-drop, or in the case of blue-white, 3-drop commons that are just performing very well. So Regulator's great, makes you want to lean into more tokens, whether they're +1/+1 counters or like shield counters, to make it tap them down for 2 turns. And then even as far as Adjudicators, 4 for body for 5 is reasonable in this format, and effectively tapping the creature down for a turn cycle with not being able to attack or block really helps press those tempo advantages that hopefully establish on turns 2, 3, and 4. And I'm looking for Civil Servant. There we go. It was up there. Is our white-green. Oftentimes you can play Civil Servant on 2, backup agent on 3, put the counter on the servant, and then tap the agent to swing it as a 4/4 lifelinker. And you may even be able to hold up like a For the Family, or be able to put a shield counter on it for a single white, or just play a tap lane on turn 3 so you're still using your mana effectively. So those are some great starts that are opened up in the broker's colors. And then if we were going to look back at some of the table shells, the deck shells that we had built, this is something that we can probably do later in the format for some of these other colors, but I'll at least look at our ones that touch blue and white. So we were pretty good on the blue-black. We noticed, the Out of the Way, the Echo Inspector, and then we have some other effects that are very focused on tempo and flying. For blue-white, some of the same. Back to Bruiser is probably not needed. We'd rather have more Raffine's Informants if we can. But we knew the Regulators were going to be good. Echo Inspectors, Rooftop Nuisances. Probably don't need the Rumor Gatherer. Ideally, these would be more interaction spells. And then green-white, probably could use more Raffine's Informants. We missed on the backup agent. But overall, that's turned out really well.